Just a few weeks ago, the UN Secretary General said that the human rights treaty body system was at the absolute heart of the international work for the promotion and protection of human rights. He was right. It's been long acknowledged. What has received less attention, perhaps, though, is that this bedrock of human rights protection is in serious trouble. The trouble has been building up now over a number of years, and it shows itself across very many fronts. Take states themselves. They're telling us that they're absolutely overwhelmed by the burden of sending reports to all of these monitoring bodies, and some of them aren't even sending in those reports at all. Then there are the treaty bodies. They're overwhelmed with the levels of the work that's required of them. They meet on a part-time voluntary basis for a few weeks a year, and they don't have the capacity to give any more to work that's growing exponentially all the time. Civil society, they've got their concerns. They talk about the great difficulty of getting material to the committees. Increasingly, there are problems around NGOs facing reprisals for the material they do get to the committees. And most sadly of all, many of the grassroots organisations around the world that need to work with these systems don't even know they exist. Underlying all of these and many other problems is the fundamental one of lack of resources. The United Nations has expected its treaty bodies to work with what can only be described as a pittance of resources over the last years. And this, of course, is a problem that's been getting worse as the number of committees expand, as the pressure of work increases. There have been a few different efforts at reforming the system over the years, with a greater or lesser degree of modest success. However, we've yet to have had the one big picture strengthening process that would deal systematically with all of the problems going forward to put in place a strong, viable, effective and efficient framework. The last and most recent effort in this regard was something called the Dublin process. It's a chain of consultations around the world that started in November 2009 and ended in November of 2011. It involved all of the stakeholders to the system, each of them involved in a respectful process of consultation and listening to identify what was needed to get the system on track. Something like 100 recommendations were adopted out of the Dublin process, and their great strength was the wide acceptance they had across all of the actors in the system. Just a few weeks ago, in June, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Navi Pillay, picked up on most of those recommendations in an important report of hers to the General Assembly, in which she laid out a master plan for a process of strengthening. She set out the menu for a major reform initiative that would deliver on all of our great expectations. It's that report that was debated in the UN General Assembly in an informal consultation process just last week. That was an important moment for states to express their views on what the system should look like, because ultimately it's their decision making and it's their resources that will make or break the strengthening process. A lot of what came out of the meetings in New York was very encouraging. Most states spoke in favour of some of the big ideas, such as an integrated, consolidated reporting calendar, the independence of members, and so on. What was much less encouraging, though, were two problems that became evident during the discussions. The first of those was that there's a group of states, admittedly a small group, but nevertheless a well-organised group of states that are setting out to use these debates, this discussion, this initiative as an opportunity not to strengthen but to weaken the system, to challenge the independence of the members, to remove from them the capacity to make their own working methods, ultimately to make the system less effective for rights holders. A second concern that emerged out of the debates in New York in the last few days has been that of the very many states who support the system and who want it strengthened, there's a strong feeling that no more resources should be given for that strengthening to take place. It's, yes, we want to see the improvements, but no, we're not willing to pay for them. And this, again, is a major problem. So what can we all do at this delicate point in the entire process? Well, in the first place, all of us, stakeholders in the treaty body system, must recognise that we need to be informed, we need to have an opinion, and we need to make sure that that opinion, that voice, is heard in the ongoing debates. That means national human rights commissions, NGOs, treaty body members themselves, as well as states, all must have their say. And it's for that reason, for instance, that I'll be convening a meeting of national human rights commissions in Belfast on the 31st of July to adopt our own consolidated response to the High Commissioner's report. The second thing that we must all do is we need to lobby our governments to come on side and to be powerful, forceful voices for a strong human rights treaty body system. We now have the best opportunity for decades to get the system right. But it matters perhaps more than ever before, not only because it's a great opportunity, but also given the extent of crisis existing currently in the system, the resistance of some states to strengthening and to improvement, this may not only be our best opportunity, it could well be our last.